Hey guys, welcome to Game On. I'm Laurie.
And I'm Simon.
And exclusivity is kind of the big buzzword in gaming at the moment.
Yeah, well, that and sexism.
And bread, weirdly. But exclusivity is particularly a buzzword if you're in the business of making and selling games.
Yeah, there was the recent announcement that Street Fighter V would be a PlayStation 4 and PC exclusive, and the less recent announcement that Tomb Raider would be coming to Xbox One first, which left us wondering, what's all that about?
What's that about, guys? Because, in all honesty, third-party exclusive to us just seem kind of dumb. Don't get me wrong, exclusives used to make perfect sense. Consoles were different enough and difficult enough to develop for that sometimes you just had to pick one and stick with it, even if it was the Virtual Boy.
It just wasn't viable to develop for multiple platforms. Like in the 8-bit days, a lot of games were being squeezed down from the more powerful arcade hardware into tiny cartridges, which took Herculean effort and didn't exactly always work. Again, I refer you to the Virtual Boy. That really was just a bump on your face.
Even back when the PS1 and N64 ruled the roost, Final Fantasy, which had previously been synonymous with Nintendo, switched to PlayStation with FF7. But this exclusivity was out of necessity because the PlayStation used discs. It had a larger storage capacity, which meant Square could spend time putting in larger hair spikes and more androgynous characters.
But nowadays the architecture is fairly similar. It hardly makes much difference who you develop for. Instead, it's part of the strategies from Sony and Microsoft to just get one over on the opposition. They're trying to freeze out players on rival consoles who probably thought these experiences were going to be multi-platform.
Add to that the rising cost of game development generally, and third-party developers are starting to find themselves in a slightly precarious predicament.
There are only a few companies big enough to fund their own games without breaking a sweat. Even Capcom's Yoshinori Ono suggested a while ago that they simply didn't have the money to make another full Street Fighter game.
But really, it's the fans who miss out. I'd argue that the last Street Fighter game was played predominantly on 360 because the online architecture was just that bit better. Then you have to take into account that Killer Instinct launched with the X-Bongo. Is that a nickname for it? Anyway, you would have to assume that a fair chunk of the fighting game community upgraded to the X-Blocks to play it. Ultra combo to Microsoft.
But now ex-Bjork players, that's about right, isn't it, are left without the game that essentially is the fighting game scene. And unfortunately for Xbox One playing Street Fighter fans, it makes more sense for Capcom and Sony.
They aren't going to not make the game, they get money from the deal, Sony gets a massive exclusive, and Capcom sells the game. Everybody wins, right? Except the X-Boners. That's what we're calling them, right?
For your Halos and Uncharteds of the world, it's not a problem. It's not even really a problem with new IPs like Titanfall and Bloodborne. You can't miss what you never had. But for third-party developers, particularly ones with legacy titles like Tomb Raider, magically making an exclusive out of a traditionally multi-platform game becomes a bit of a kick in the plums for fans of the series.
Because then they're left with one option, switch or miss out. And I'm not exactly going to be forking out £400 for another console so I can watch a load of guys in dressing gowns beat each other up. And I'll tell you what, I don't hand over money easily. Just ask my ex-wife. I'm joking, she's dead.
Dead right about console exclusives. Oh, too soon?